The question I'm asking myself almost every week is, are we doing things that we shouldn't be doing? You lose focus naturally. There is an entropy problem. You do more projects, you have more opportunities, you talk to more people. And so when I felt overwhelmed, I knew that it's because we have too many things and we were not strong enough to say no, or not disciplined enough to stay focused.
This is today's guest, Alexander Lebrun, CEO of Nabla, an artificially intelligent co-pilot for doctors. Listening to his entrepreneurial journey, one thing became clear to me. His success and passion has been fueled by his ability to stay humble, continually reflect, and reset his course. Alex's journey began in 2003 with a fascination for Sibel, a young lady chatbot. This intriguing connection with a machine eventually led him to become the CEO and co-founder of Nabla. Never underestimate the power of a connection, whether it's an AI bot or not. Before founding Nabla, Alex was head of engineering at Facebook AI Research for almost 4 years. He also founded Wit.ai, an AI platform that simplifies building apps that understand natural human language. This startup was eventually acquired by Facebook in 2015. Prior to Wit.ai, he founded and served as CEO of VirtuOz, a pioneer in customer service chatbots acquired by Nuance Communications in 2013. I loved hearing Alex's reflections from his time at Facebook and with Mark Zuckerberg. Alex discusses everything from the politics of large organizations to the need for uncompromised focus by removing activities that steal a company's attention. We'll see how Alex, completely new to healthcare and without a network, carved his space in the industry, learn how failure set him up for later success, understand large language models from an outsider's perspective, the ethical concerns in healthcare with AI integration, and so much more. Alex struck me as honest, simple, yet decisive, with some very interesting insights. I really hope you enjoy listening to this interview just as much as I enjoyed recording it. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to Digital Health Disruptors by Charm Health. On this podcast, we explore the trials and triumphs of pioneers at the intersection of technology and healthcare. I'm your host, Ranjani Rangan. What a pleasure it is to meet with you, Alex, and have you on the Digital Health Disruptors podcast. I am so excited to have this interview with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Alex, you founded Nabla in 2019, and fast forward 3 years, you've grown to 46 employees and raised $24 million in a recent Series B round. Yeah, many startups have a story. And while I was doing some digging around in your background, I stumbled upon something quite interesting. I couldn't help but be charmed and wanted to dive deeper into this story. So did you really fall in love with a chatbot? Or is this just a clever tale to intrigue people?
I don't know if love is maybe too strong a word, but like in online dating, you sometimes encounter people that you have pleasure to communicate with. I had this experience of like online dating with a bot. So maybe falling in love is too strong, but then I was fascinated by this chatbot called Sibel, a young woman, a long time ago. And it was very interesting to chat with her, discover what she knew or didn't know. And it was very similar to when you meet someone new. And this technology was so impressive and so cool. I really wanted to spend my life working on this technology and do something with it. So it was the beginning.
The beginning of what would become Nabla. Let's look into what this company is in a nutshell.
So if you follow a physician for one day, you will realize that they spend about half of their time doing very low value tasks, like administrative tasks, like documentation, filling paperwork. And it creates lots of problems because they become burnout, they leave the profession. There is a shortage of physicians. So many problems of healthcare systems are triggered by this fact that they are wasting 50% of the time on valueless tasks. And so what we are doing at Nabla is an AI assistant working for clinicians that automates for them all these low-value tasks, like administrative tasks, documentation, and lots of paperwork is fully automated on their behalf. And so that they can spend more time with their patients, providing care, making medical decisions, diagnostics, the things that they were actually trying to do and for which they are the best.
Yeah, it's an administrative nightmare for clinicians.
They go back home in the evening, have dinner, put kids to bed, and then they have to log on the AMR and then find their handwritten notes from the day, close the charts. And this is a nightmare for them and for their family, and it has a lot of implications. And physicians who are using Nabla typically tell us, I don't have pajama time anymore. So this is exactly what our objective with our product.
Nabla uses ambient AI, technology that uses sensors, processors, and actuators to pick up and understand what's happening in the environment. The goal of ambient AI is to create an intelligent system that can solve problems in real time without requiring human intervention. The term ambient refers to the fact that the AI operates in the background until it receives a cue that indicates it needs to act. In this case, Nabla's ambient AI Co-pilot provides AI-generated clinical notes in a few seconds, freeing up physicians to focus on their core expertise.
The physicians are not taking notes on a computer anymore. They're just looking at the patient in the eyes, listening to them, giving them their full attention. And as a patient, you really feel the difference. But you have a human, deep interaction with your physician, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then on top of the paperwork automation, we can write some instructions for the patients in their language. So very often in the US, it's in Spanish, for instance, where we explain in very detailed and easy to understand terms what was mentioned during the visit and what they should do, how to the prescription, what after effects they should be careful of, and so on. So this has a huge impact on patient engagement.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that most providers won't complain if clinical documentation is no longer part of their workday.
Never heard that, yeah.
In healthcare, trust is the golden thread. It stitches together vital relationships. Alex found himself without the benefit of established connections. He was an outsider. How was he going to sell to physicians? After all, some large players in this space already had doctors in their pockets. Well, sometimes the most powerful solutions are just beyond what's familiar. So, how did you manage to carve out your space in the healthcare industry? Your network is completely different. Many people start out with connections already in healthcare.
We made a very bold and expensive decision early on. At Nabla, we said, okay, we know nothing about healthcare. The fastest way to learn is to run our own clinic. And so let's run our clinic, hire physicians, get patients, and then we'll observe and learn every day very quickly. So we did that in two countries, France and in the UK, in order to avoid overfitting one culture.
Yeah, as an organization, we always believe the clinicians are the expert, and their voice is so important in creating healthcare technology in particular. I think it's just fascinating that you create a clinic, but this is an expensive ordeal, I would think. You were clearly not in survival mode and probably had good investor backing in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't have done Nabla as my first startup, because to get investors who trust you enough to fund your clinic before you even know exactly what you want to do, you have to convince them of that. And if it's your first startup, I think it's impossible. I was fascinated by healthcare, but I knew I was not strong enough to start with this big problem. But after two startups, I felt it was the right time, and having unconditional, I would say, financial backing from good investors, we were able to have this full stack approach and start our clinic. So we were very lucky to have this.
Financial backing is something so difficult to get. It speaks to your team and your credibility you were able to offer. That's great. Would it have been too difficult to approach doctors yourself and be able to work in partnership?
Yeah, we considered that, and we felt the doctors we first met, the cultural gap was too big. Their willingness to think outside the box, to take risks, which I understand, but we felt, okay, if we partner with these physicians, we won't build anything new. We will just improve a little bit their EMR, and because this is what they wanted, not a bold enough way to rethink everything. And it was a mistake. We should have looked further. I think if we had spent more time looking for such a partner, we would have learned faster than, and it would have been less expensive and faster than building our own clinic. So I think this is one of the many, many mistakes we've done. We survived, but taking the time to find the right partner would have been a better route.
I'm sure all great entrepreneurs learn so much from mistakes. How has this mistake set you up for later success?
Well, the initial objective was met. We learned, we discovered the problem, we got to meet many clinicians, and then we found the right people for the next steps. I think the mistake is that we spent too much time, spent too much money doing that, but eventually it gave us our first data set first. It gave us a very strong network of clinicians, and many of them are still working with us to this day. And it also gave us a lot of credibility into the healthcare space because, as you know, the healthcare network is so important in healthcare. If nobody knows you and your organization, nobody will trust you. Today, when we tell our customers that we were a provider, we are from the same group, they understand, they trust us because they know we've been in their shoes.
Yeah. Tell me about your journey that led you to founding Nabla.
Starting with this early chatbot technology, I did what startup school tell you not to do, meaning I studied from the technology and looked for a market or customer problem that I could solve with this technology. So this is a reverse of what you should do. You should start from the problem, but starting from the technology, I found that customer service was a good candidate to use chatbots because customer service was very expensive and customers were not happy with waiting many minutes on the phone or several days to get an answer to their email. So I started to sell chatbots to large companies, first in France, and then when we started to be successful, we moved to the US, to the Bay Area. We raised money with US VCs and eventually sold this company called Virtuos after 10 years to Nuance Communications. And I didn't stay a long time with Nuance, but I started another startup called Wit.ai in Palo Alto in 2013. It was actually the very first startup to use a .ai domain name.
Back in 2013, tackling sophisticated AI problems was tough. For Alex, it meant making dictionaries, grammar rules, and syntax manually, which is super expensive and needed a lot of work with consultants and linguists. For example, understanding the intent or purpose of the inquiry, something easily solved today with large language models, was a massive effort. Wit AI's ability to capture the intent of a user's input, relying solely on machine learning, was groundbreaking for natural language processing.
With Wit.ai, we try to teach a computer machine to understand human language. And so if you didn't have $1 million to spend with a company like Nuance, you couldn't get this. It was difficult back then. The real innovation in Wit.ai, it was using only end-to-end machine learning, where we don't try to teach word by word, every word to the machine, or rules, things like that. We just give examples of what we want, so input and output, and then we train models like that. So it was fully relying on machine learning, which was really new for natural language processing at the time. We made this process of understanding intent and entities in human language accessible for any developer for free. So this was a disruption.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
So this company was acquired by Facebook in 2015. I spent 4 years with Facebook AI research, working on very ambitious problems related to understanding human language and helping humans as they communicate with other humans. So not a chatbot anymore. Here, we're not trying to replace a human. We are trying to help a human as they try to achieve something. And after 4 years at Facebook, we realized that we had very powerful research. It was public, open source code. And as an entrepreneur, I really wanted to apply that to an actual problem to make a product out of it instead of just publishing papers. And so we chose healthcare and started Nabla 5 years ago.
So what were the biggest takeaways from your time at Facebook?
I was really shocked when I joined Facebook with my team. We were 7,000 employees at Facebook at this time.
Yeah.
And it was going very fast like a startup. So I felt, wow, they built a machine that can move as fast as a small startup, but with huge resources and lots of people. And so it was very impressive. In my first startup, when we crossed the 50 employee line, we started to be slower, to have politics, middle managers, some issues that made us slower compared to the early days. And at Facebook, I felt, wow, this is a 7,000 people company and we are still going so fast. And I was very impressed with what had been done by Mark and his team to scale Facebook so fast without losing what makes small companies so efficient. I learned a lot actually looking at that. One of the things Mark always said is, if you do nothing, you will become like the very old political company that we don't want to become. So you cannot prevent that. You can just slow this process down. You have to work on it consciously every day. Otherwise, you will become such a company. And for instance, the Facebook sign at the entrance of the campus in Menlo Park, if you look behind, there was the Sun Microsystems.
Sun Microsystems. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a reminder that if we do nothing, we will become the next Sun Microsystem. I thought it was a very powerful message.
That's interesting. So they never removed the Sun Microsystems sign, but just layered it over it as a symbolic message to everyone there. It's like, stay ahead of the curve, be innovative.
Most importantly, I think, every company says this, stay ahead of the curve, innovate, but it's only words. But
yeah,
in practice, what slows people down is politics. If you need to get 10 approvals to get something done, this is what makes the best engineers leave. And then the company to become an old, slow company. I think the prevention of politics and making sure decision loops stay very short is you need to work on that every day if you want to keep your agility.
Oh, I wonder if that influenced your approach to your go-to-market strategy, which we'll get to later on. Perhaps you were able to avoid a lot of the politics and things like that by taking a more bottom-up approach. So where were you in that point of life? Was there a life trigger that brought you into healthcare?
Not really a life trigger. I know many startups were founded because the founders experienced like a health problem or their family. Not in my case.
You have a chatbot story instead.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to do something like impactful, and you can see how healthcare is broken.
Yeah.
Now I know that it's more broken than I thought initially, but I knew already. And so if you want to make something bigger than just another chatbot startup, healthcare was a very good candidate, of course. And then the second reason, I wanted to learn something completely new. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and discover something I didn't know anything about. I don't have any physician in my family, and I was never really sick. So I knew I would learn every day, and it was very exciting to me.
Up next, Alex employs innovative, frictionless strategies to disrupt both product and distribution at Nabla. Plus, how a product-led growth mode makes users champions of your product. And later, the important questions Alex asks himself on a weekly basis to manage overwhelm. Stick with us. As we mentioned before, you have a bottom-up model, and you chose to do that versus having a top-down model. Tell me a little bit about that and how that's worked for you.
I've learned in my first startups is that entrepreneurs, tend to forget that the most important is distribution. You can have the best product of the world. If you don't have strong distribution channels, you won't win. So I wanted to not just innovate on the product, but also innovate on the distribution strategy, especially as we compete against companies like Nuance, who have a very strong distribution network. They have existing contracts with most providers in the US. They have huge sales teams. They are really good. Pretend to fight with the same battle and win against this kind of company. And so we were thinking, how will we disrupt distribution on top of the product? And we realized in our very early version of the product that physicians really fell in love, like instantly, I say, maybe in 2 or 3 minutes with the product. You cannot go bottom up if your product requires 2 hours of setup and technical steps, and it only works if your time to delight is very short and easy.
I love that.
If it's not, you cannot. There is no way your bottom up approach will work, and especially with clinicians who are already overwhelmed.
It's so frictionless that you've made the app a Chrome extension and it's easy to use. A doctor can download it on a whim and try it. It doesn't require too much searching, downloading.
So yeah, there is a Chrome extension that was used for telehealth visit. It's very, very easy to see, to do one medical encounter, one consultation, and see that it's working really well. We got very, very good feedback and more users, small practices, and even individual clinicians to use Nabla. We even have a freemium model where they can try it for free. And then they can buy it as a personal, like SaaS purchase for a monthly fee. They pay with their credit card. And they use it more and more. And we know that most clinicians tend to work 2 days a week in their practice and then 3 days a week in the hospital, for instance. So after a while, they will tell the hospital, oh, I'm using that. I want to use it in the hospital as well. We should purchase a global license for everyone. And so our users become our champions and our salespeople, actually, and recommend to the large healthcare organizations to purchase Nabla. And so this is our go-to-market strategy, like a kind of product-led growth model that is used in some industries. I could mention Slack, for instance, or 85% of Slack enterprise customers who are spending more than $1 million with Slack actually started to use Slack bottom-up, like a small team using it for free. And so we deployed this playbook of bottom-up go-to-market, and it works really well for us. I always say, engineers make the mistake to start from the technology and then look for a problem. Then product managers do better. They start from a customer problem and then find the right technology. But I think the best entrepreneurs start from a very good distribution idea, then find the problem and the technology. This is, for me, the ultimate way to build your company.
In this process of growing your company, when you felt overwhelmed or unfocused, what questions did you ask yourself?
It's a very good question. The question I'm asking myself almost every week is, are we doing things that we shouldn't be doing? You lose focus naturally. There is an entropy problem. You do more projects, you have more opportunities, you talk to more people. And so when I felt overwhelmed, I knew that it's because we have too many things and we were not strong enough to say no, or not disciplined enough to stay focused. And at this point, you have to take a day or two and cut some projects or kill this feature in the product, or you say, okay, you will do only this geography and not this market. So you need to constantly refocus, but it's hard to say no or to cut some branches. But this is really what we should do. And again, this is something I think Facebook was doing really well. As managers, you even had some kind of bonus when you kill a project. If you kill a project that you started a few months before, it was really mentioned as something very positive in your performance review. It requires a lot of courage to admit that you are wrong. And so in big companies, you have sometimes hundreds of zombie projects that one manager is supporting. But it takes a few engineers, a few product managers, a few resources here and there. And at the end, you have thousands of people in the company and you wonder, what is this company doing? They're not building anything. We have to ask ourselves this question very often. When I feel overwhelmed, I know that it's because we are doing too many things.
In one word, what would you describe as your core value that you consistently adhere to?
Kindness. I think kindness would be this word. It implies that you listen to others, you're curious, you try to understand, you're empathetic. When I say kindness, because you gave me only one word, it was a way to pack a lot of values inside this word.
Next up, Alex's take on why Nabla stands out among the sea of AI medical transcription software. Then, we'll take a deeper look at understanding large language models and the increasing ethical concerns of AI in healthcare. The days of medical stenographers and dictation machines are gone, and those still working as offshore medical transcribers will be soon out of a job. Competitors to Nabla include Nuance, Ambience, and DeepScribe are now fiercely vying for market share. Crucial factors such as partnerships, cost efficiency, agility, and the ability for the AI to adapt to the physician may be a key differentiator. Alex believes today, clinical documentation has evolved from a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, I think many companies do the mistake to think that clinical documentation is one problem and everyone has the same problem. So then it's easy to do a demo with ChatGPT. But when you meet the people, you understand that every organization has a different problem. And inside this given organization, physicians or departments or clinicians have different problems or different solutions. They don't document the same. I never met two doctors who agreed on what is the best note. And we have to take for granted that we need to personalize. The product should adapt itself to the users and not the contrary. It may seem obvious to say that, but when you look at many products on the market, they just say, this is the way the product works. We told them that AI would solve that problem. So you cannot tell them, okay, now you need to learn and adapt to the AI. So the AI should adapt to them. And so we built a product that is very easy to customize, that can be personalized down to the user level. So every clinician has a lot of control over how their AI assistant works for them. And this is something our customers really appreciate about Nabla, ability to very quickly adapt to their needs.
How are you able to train these models to be so customized for that user?
So we use a combination of different LLMs. We also use like old machine learning that is not LLM. There are some tasks where you want to have strong predictability, and so for that, like old machine learning, pre-LLM is a good option.
Similar to what you used in Wit.ai.
Exactly, yeah. So we use a combination of non-LLM and LLM machine learning, and then we use different LLMs for different subtasks. So we are thinking task by task, what is the best LLM? We are constantly evaluating, because you have a new LLM every week. So we have very efficient ways to decide with data if we should switch a given subtask to the new LLM or not, almost every day or every week. So we devise many ways to make this decision factual and almost automatic and data-driven, so that we can be very agile and switch from one LLM to the other. It's a very difficult decision. The three things we are looking at for a given LLM is not only its accuracy, but also its speed and its cost to earn. So these are the three parameters you're looking at, and depending on the task, one may be more important than the other. But this is how we are seeing the problem.
So you're having one LLM talk to another LLM.
Yeah, so you can have one LLM to generate the clinical notes, the structure of the note, and then use another one when you want to do coding, getting the ICD-10 codes or the CPT codes for what was mentioned during the encounter.
Yeah. For speed, you probably choose something that's more straightforward.
Exactly. If the user tells you, I like my note to be more like this or that, then it's good to use another kind of LLM and so on. So it's like a teamwork between several LLMs.
So you have this basic model. It's like a blank slate with basic functionality. Then you fine tune it with your own data and you make it even smarter. Can you help me understand private data sets where you need to train the LLM? And how were you able to procure these large amount of data sets?
We need our private data sets. Everybody has access to the same LLM. So basically, if you want to fine tune your LLMs better than your competitors, you need data. And you don't need like as much data as I need to build the LLM from scratch, like billions and billions and billions of pages. But you need very high quality data to do this fine tuning. As we run our clinic, this is how we got our very first data set. And it was one of the reasons why we made this very expensive decision.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time and money in a second phase, partnering with practices to get data through them.
What's up, listeners? Are you an early startup looking to make a dent in digital health? Charm Health is eager to get to know you and introduce you to our growing marketplace of top digital health companies, helping you connect with our extensive provider user base. A great way to get to know what we do is to check out charmhealthchallenge.com and participate in our Innovation Challenge, running August 23rd through the 25th in Washington, D.C. at the Grand Hyatt. Entries are due by August 1st. Alex, for our listeners, can you break down the basics of large language models?
Yes, to better understand the strengths and weaknesses of LLMs, you have to look at how they work. The way we train LLMs is we feed some text, And we stopped at some point and we asked the LLM to guess the next word or the next token. And then we do that billions and billions and billions of times with as much text as we can find on the internet. And so it's very, very simple. It's basically a kind of autocomplete on steroids, very powerful autocomplete. When you ask a question to ChatGPT, it will feed your question and then guess the first word of the answer. And then based on the question plus this first word, will guess the second word, and then the third one, and so on. It turns out it's very powerful if you train this at a very large scale, but has no way to know when it doesn't know, has no way to know when it's wrong, has no conscience, is very confident, will always produce an output that looks like a good output because it was trained to produce something that is looking good. What looks right is right, but sometimes it's not. And so the power of an LLM, it can produce some answers or results that are very powerful and that we didn't train explicitly to solve. So it was used to rule-based AI we had before, where any output, as you know, you had to give the rules, every necessary rule for the system to produce something. An LLM will seem like to make very interesting deduction by itself, and so it's really powerful. But on the other hand, it will never say, I don't know. So it will produce something that looks good, even if it doesn't know. And this is what we call hallucinations. And it's impossible at this stage. There is no easy fix to this problem. And it makes lots of applications of LLMs in real life today impossible or very difficult because of these few cases where the LLM will be wrong and with no obvious way to detect these occurrences.
This is absolutely fascinating, but you have sometimes humans like this too. They think they're very correct. And you have two humans debating against each other, and they both seem absolutely correct, but then you sometimes have a mediator. Could you not create a separate LLM, more specialized, that could look at the 15 best LLMs, get the best answers, come with an average result, and then say, well, I'm going to take your answers and this is what's going to be your final answer, or like be a judge for things that are mission critical, things that are in healthcare?
So we have to accept that by construction, there are problems that also come from the same thing that makes them very, very powerful. Yann LeCun, who is one of the godfathers of AI and Turing Prize recipient. So Yann says LLMs are useful. They are part of the solution, but we need something more. We need something that works differently with a totally different approach. And
I see.
These two things working together may be, something like what you mentioned. And this is also probably how our brain is working. We have very different parts of the brain, some of them very, very old, that all mammals have.
Yeah.
Some of them, like the prefrontal, are newer and work differently. And there is probably a kind of balance between these things. And some researchers think we need to reproduce that with. You could say that LLM today is only the creative part of the brain that is generating lots of ideas and crazy things, but we are still missing the rational part.
It's still a toddler that needs a little bit of parenting.
Yeah, but we know that toddlers after 1 or 2 or 3 months already can do some logical reasoning that LLMs cannot do. And after 3 months, the amount of information they got and is very, very small compared to what we feed. That the human brain is not just an LLM. Because with much less data, they do some logical reasoning that LLMs, the most powerful LLMs, cannot do. They can pretend to do with a high level of confidence, but still we know they don't. And it's very high. I often say if LLMs can pass the bar exam, maybe it's not that LLMs are so smart. It's maybe that the bar exam is not the right way to.
I was thinking that too.
Not the right way to test for.
It's not testing a certain kind of intelligence. It's testing a very rote intelligence potentially.
I'm more worried about the bar exam than I am excited about LLMs when I see they can pass it, but that's another story.
We sort of did talk about ethical considerations. What are your concerns in healthcare that maybe some clinicians could be concerned about?
Just said, LLMs make mistakes. It's not today to fully automate some process and making medical decisions would be a very bad idea. But the better the system, the more the humans, users will trust it, and the more they trust it, the less they will check the result. But they should check the result. So this is the most concerning, I think, short-term issue that we should be aware of.
It seems that you have an edge over others, but in another 2 years, in EHR system could seamlessly integrate with a large language model and do similar data analysis and medical transcription almost like it's a feature, like it's very trivial. How do you plan to stay ahead of the curve?
We think that what we were doing last year will be easy to do in 2 years. But in 2 years, we'll be doing something much more difficult. I think the real moat is the speed of execution. It's not about like a specific skill or technology that you have and other people don't have. It would be naive to think like that and just stop because you think you have your moat, as I mentioned on the roadmap. So it's a very, very dynamic moat where the ability to execute very quickly makes a difference. And I'm optimistic about our ability to execute quickly because we first, beyond the team, the company, the data set we have, I think our strongest thing is our community of users, thousands of physicians who are really engaged with us, give us feedback almost daily or weekly. We build this relationship with them. Beyond the enterprise top-down contracts, we keep this. And this is like a secret sauce, I hope, moving forward.
In a space where there's so many players, in a short amount of time, you've come to the forefront and been able to make the people champions of your product. I think that's just absolutely amazing. Nabla's primary focus over the next 2 years is to enhance functions for clinicians, starting with clinical documentation and expanding to pre- and post-patient encounter support. This direction is driven by extensive user feedback, allowing for rapid product iteration. The goal is to assist clinicians more efficiently between patient encounters. Moreover, Nabla is entering into revenue cycle management, offering real-time coding suggestions during encounters. Their vision is to streamline healthcare processes with AI, reducing burden on clinicians and improving efficiency over the next 2 years. However, what truly stands out is the phase beyond, especially as it aligns with the advancements in AI.
I think what will be very interesting is the phase after that, where we have enough knowledge, enough users. We've learned enough, like a very good, medical student. With our clinicians, with our users, we can start to think, okay, what should be a completely new way to deliver healthcare with AI? And then we are not just following the actual scheme where you have a patient records, encounter, but maybe there are some different ways to do that with the AI we'll have in 3 or 5 years. And if we have a big enough community of clinicians and credibility and financial power, we could have very ambitious project to rethink new ways to deliver healthcare with AI. But we cannot do that now. First, we have many things to learn, and AI still has to solve some issues that we just mentioned. And when we have all these things, we can move to phase 2. And this is what we are aiming at Nabla.
Very exciting. It's hard to believe that it's so close. It's hard to believe that it's just 5 years away.
It's never been so close, yeah.
Yeah. We have clinicians in 3 different categories. You have your enthusiasts, perhaps they're already innovating in this space. You have your pragmatists, the cautious, and then you have your skeptics. They're watching and waiting. What advice do you have for clinicians in each of these spaces?
My advice would be, don't read too much about AI. Don't try to have an opinion like I'm against or for AI. I think the best next step is to try yourself, to make your own judgment. There are many things you can use, play with, Nabla is one, and make your own opinion. And then we are at a very early stage of the AI revolution for healthcare. Clinicians who want to be involved in helping build these next systems can find a startup or a lab, a way to participate, to be part of this new wave. And it's just the beginning. You will be amazed how fast you can make these systems evolve. And you're welcome, be part of this work instead of just watching from the sidelines. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Alex, that brings our podcast to a wrap. And it's been absolutely fascinating for me to talk with you. Thank you so much for making time in your extremely busy schedule.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay connected with the latest in healthcare technology and entrepreneurship, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Your feedback fuels our mission to deliver top-notch content. Stay tuned for more exciting interviews with visionaries, innovators, and disruptors in the digital health space. Until next time, keep innovating, stay fearless, and continue to be part of the disruption that's shaping the future of healthcare. We'll see you next episode.